So our online case discussion today, specifically for BCG's application. So you guys have a little bit of context because I think it's valuable. This is not something exactly new that BCG is doing. They have been using this online case in a variety of different ways for some time. And one of the things in the work that I do, I'm constantly looking at how the firm's interviewing. They did this for a while in their Asian offices, somewhat in Europe. They started doing this with advanced degree candidates, so individuals who have PhDs, MDs, JDs. I somewhat saw this coming last year in general, and then obviously with COVID and having to do more and more things virtually, it came with a little bit more of an assertive force. What I think is interesting and why we're doing this preparation today is that what BCG did a little bit quickly last year is they moved this online case to be part of your application. So instead of it being a part of the first round, it's coming early, really early. I have a couple of other things that I've done in my research over the past, almost a year now with this. One is I've talked with individuals who have taken the online case and after the fact kind of debriefed what are people's experiences, what's the flow. Some of what I'm going to give you guys here in a minute are a couple of the key tips to focus on. The other thing, I've had some conversations with people on the recruiting side in trying to understand how they're using the online case. To be honest, that part of it is much more vague, and without sort of being an insider, I don't have a great answer. But what I want you guys to go into this understanding is that it is but one data point. I don't know that it's an absolute. I'm not sure that it has a gate effect on the first round interview selections, but it is certainly a part of their decision criteria for first round interviews. My assessment in stitching together a couple of things is that one of the major aspects of this online case is actually the very end, because you are asked to record your conclusion verbally. There is something that I think is important about that you want to keep in mind. I think it has to do with the ability to communicate, to synthesize very quickly, and to highlight the key points. Keep that in mind. And I think that tells you something about the firm's overall approach to assessing candidates, that they've placed a priority on the communication skills. That said, let me give you all just a little bit of a feel of how this case works and what your best practices are, your tips. So number one, it is timed. That timing is inflexible. You have 25 minutes, I think, 27 minutes. It's changed a tiny bit. They will give you this information in the instructions. That timing is the most important thing. When you practice with what we're going to do, we're going to time everything so you'll get a feel for it. And the timing is critical, because if you don't get through all the pieces, it will just cut you off. So timing, timing, timing. The second thing, there are a fixed number of questions that are asked. You must read the information that is presented to you, which is both text and charts. Clearly, reading quickly is important. And then there are two types of questions. One type is multiple choice. The second is a written response. You've got to synthesize, you've got to answer that multiple choice question, and then typically the written response is some type of explanation of your thinking. This means you've got to type clearly and concisely and be able to answer your main point of thinking. There's a little bit of rapid fire here. The third thing I'm going to mention is the overall kind of going from start to end and getting yourself prepared to do the conclusion. This is then where your note taking is very important. Because it's online, it doesn't mean that your notes are not important. What you want to be doing is also in parallel taking some quick notes, not in a notebook, in individual sheets of paper. Write down the core elements of the case, write down the nature of the first question, what your general response was, then sort of crib notes on your rationale, move to the next question. If there's a calculation to do it on your paper, then answer the question in the software. Why is this note taking important? It is important because then when you get to the end of the case, you have about 1 minute, maybe a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, depending on how you've done to that point with your time management. You've got to get your notes together, and then you've got to deliver the verbal conclusion and have it recorded. And you have 1 minute to do the verbal conclusion, and it will cut you off. My understanding from the last couple of people who have done BCG's case in the last, say, month, you only have one shot at the conclusion. It used to be they gave you 2 chances. So we're going to do 2 in our practice today, but I encourage you, as you're practicing in the next week, to try to get that conclusion done with 1 good, solid run through. Okay, and that way you're prepared. And it just goes to show you 3 months ago, 4 months ago, they were giving people 2 chances to do the conclusion. Now 1 run through of the conclusion. So this is more or less how it works. Let me tell you the things that people have said about their experience with the case. Number 1, people have both described it as extremely difficult and extremely easy. It's bimodal. I've heard it on both sides. My only probably differentiation between the people I've talked to is how well prepared they were, what the expectations were. Some people, they said it wasn't that bad. Other people that I've talked to through, different people that have been referred to me to sort of debrief after the fact, found it to be very, very difficult, but many of those individuals said, they went into it a bit cold. I think that it's fair that it could go either way. I think the second thing that people have said that makes this difficult is that it's just awkward because there's no interaction. You have no one that you're speaking to. You don't get any feedback. You can't ask any questions. That's just a different experience. And then the final thing that people have said is that the math can be a little bit tricky. And you have a short period of time. You're typically reading a chart. Obviously, the information is not given to you verbally. And so the fast math is fast. It's often, kind of percentage of percentages and stuff that just maybe isn't as straightforward. And what a few people have said is it's not typical math. It's not like calculating profitability. It might be reading data in a chart and having to do what I call operational math or math word problems, where you're not necessarily applying a formula that's in your head. You kind of have to figure out what the formula is. That gives you a little bit of some of the places that it was difficult. And a few people have told me they felt very uncomfortable with the online case, didn't think it went great, but then received the next round or an invitation to interview. I think your own feelings when you walk away, you have to suspend a little bit of judgment. You guys want to do your best and feel confident. That's why we're doing this. Question in the chat I see about the conclusion. Yeah, a couple people are asking about this. You have a total amount of time to do the case. Time bound is that they give you from start to end. What then happens is, let's say there's 7, 8 questions. You want to get those done in a sufficient amount of time so that you have about 3 minutes left at the end. I mean, this is really precise. If you have 3 minutes at the end, you've got 2 minutes to prepare. If you only have 2 minutes left at the end, you've got a minute to prepare and then a minute to do the delivery. There is a balance here. There's a time management, and if you run long on all those prior questions, you have almost no time at the end to prepare. What some people have said to me that they have done is because of all the note taking and working quickly on the prior questions to the conclusion, they gave themselves, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes to prep for that conclusion. And then they had a couple seconds to breathe and then deliver the conclusion. So this is why I emphasize the time management so much. So everybody, the case, it's so different than when you're practicing with a partner. You're not gonna lay out a structure. You're gonna be asked targeted questions. Which of these areas might be the place you want to begin first? So it's very directed. And the second thing to keep in mind is you just have to go with your answers, what your thinking is, and then be able to explain it. And just keep going and not get side railed by, hey, maybe I didn't answer that the right way. You just have to keep going and use that conclusion to really show your synthesis and your communication skills. Excellent. All right, everybody. Well, no time like the present. So what I want everyone to do is to navigate yourself to Summit Bid Level 4. You're going to go into Activity 14, which is the online case, and make sure that the plus sign closes everything. And I'm going to be turning my screen off. I'm not going to have you see what I'm seeing. I want you to be completely focused on your screen. And just one of the last questions is about the time allotment. You are given a total amount of time. BCG, when you guys get ready and you log in or beforehand, they'll give you very, very explicit instructions. Read all of that because, again, every day things change. I don't want to tell you guys the exact logistics because I'm not logged in and I'm not seeing exactly what's happening. So make sure that you just take time to read. All right, so if everybody is navigated, click on the first question, which is Fiji Smart Cards question 1A.